Hello, and welcome to the Kosh. I'm your host, Timber Smith, and thank you for tuning in again, all those out there listening. Super excited about today's episode. You know what? I am lucky. I get some pretty amazing guests that agree to come on here. It's always the promise that is going to be a good time. And this week's guest is Paul Van Auken. Paul, how are you doing over there?
I'm doing great. Glad to be here.
I am glad you are here too. You ready to jump in?
Yes, let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. Can you please share a little something about yourself and what is your connection to the Kosh?
Well, I've been here since 2007. I think if I do the math, this is going to be my 15th year. I came here to teach at UWO, and we moved in to the Central City a couple weeks before school started that first year in 2007. So my connection is, pretty tight now after all these years, not just to UWO, but to the city. I think we've kind of immersed ourselves in the scene from the beginning, wanting to be a part of the action, not just be someone that teaches and goes and has a separate life or something. So we've got my wife and I have a couple daughters that now have grown up here, or growing up way too fast.
I know that feeling.
Yeah. All of a sudden I have a 9th grader at Oshkosh North.
Bruh.
Exactly. That's the part that's mind-blowing, and I'm sure all parents out there can relate to that, but then a 5th grader. So,
ooh, you got a middle schooler?
Well, not quite, but...
Oh, that's true. But middle school starts 6th grade, right?
Yeah, and she goes to a little Lutheran school in our neighborhood, so if she doesn't switch over to public earlier, she won't do middle school, because it's K through 8th, though. So anyway, but all of a sudden getting taller, getting double digits. It's kind of mind blowing.
Oh yeah, they grow fast. They start creeping up on you. I never liked it when the daughter would roll up on me and like give you that chin check to let you know, like she might surpass you. like they look forward to looking down on you.
Exactly. And my wife's dealing with that already with our 9th grader, that they're at eye level, which I think it's impressive. It's not problematic for me. I don't think they're going to catch me. So
you feel safe, huh? I felt safe, but then there was a minute where I almost didn't feel safe, and then it slowed down. I was like, all right, I'm good. I'm not going to have to look up to her. So yeah, I feel you on that. You said that you teach. What do you teach?
I teach sociology, and as you know, we overlapped. Because I don't know how much you tout your background on the show, Timber, but I know that you're a social major in our program, which is pretty cool. But we actually overlapped in time, but not in circles, because you were finishing up when I started. But so I've been teaching sociology and environmental studies from the very beginning, and eventually became the department chair as we got younger and smaller. And so I've been the chair for the last 7 years, I think, which I really enjoy. It's a funny thing in academia. I don't know if anyone has watched the Netflix show The Chair, which it's a pretty good show. It's about, I won't go all into it, but the premise is that it's sort of like a Harvard-type college, and the chair of the English department for the first time is a woman of color. And a lot of the stuff about academia they get pretty right. And classic case would be, first meeting, condolences about being chair. I got that so many times at UWO.
Condolences?
Yeah. Or like, bruh. Exactly. And it usually actually it's more like congratulations, or should I say condolences? I find that really annoying. I was excited to become the chair actually, because I believe in the department and wanted to, do well, and it's a challenging time. So it's kind of exciting to be able to strategically try to figure out how to make a little department like sociology survive. So anyway, it's been a fun part of the job in the last few years.
Well, I'll tell you what, I want to give a big fat shout out to sociology at UW Oshkosh. Yes, I am definitely a product of that program. I got a lot of love from that program, minus maybe one individual, but other than that, every other educator that was there was really about trying to help me figure the things out and make it happen. And I like to think that I am doing the program proud. So it's important to me because this like I know this. Everybody's always like, so what are you gonna do with that sociology degree? Mm-hmm. Well, guess what I'm doing with mine? No, I'm just and I'm just saying, if you understand how people function in their environments, if you understand diversity, you can work anywhere and you can kind of do anything. Those are the skills that you can't necessarily teach. You can teach Microsoft Office. You can't teach how to relate to people, diverse people.
Yeah, and I think you sort of embody the pitch that I give to students when I teach one of our required classes that has a career development component to it, which is, when you're a sociology major, you're not coming out with a certification in Word, or you're not coming out with an accounting degree with obvious job directions. You're not coming out as a nurse. Nothing wrong with those majors or anything like that. But you're coming out with a set of skills that will help you advance. And all of a sudden, it didn't happen all of a sudden, but you find yourself as the director of inclusion and diversity for City Appleton. It's like, yeah, that's what you do when you get it. You move up. You become a mover and shaker. That's what we love to see.
There's definitely sets of skills in individuals, and I particularly really appreciated the nurturing approach to the individuals that the professors that were there at my time. Mm-hmm. They were good. They were a good set of people.
That's great.
All right. You ready for the first segment?
Sure.
Okay, first segment. What in the world is going on with? That is where you start the phrase "What in the world is going on with," and you tell us what's on your mind. So, what's on your mind?
Football. Now that's maybe a weird one, but that is what came to mind. There's so many things I could say. There's so many things going on.
Right.
But that was the one that came to mind for two reasons. Should I tell you?
Yeah, I want to know. Hey, not do I just want to know. The Kosh listeners want to know.
I'm a big sports fan. I probably spend too much time wasting time on sports, but it's nice to have a distraction, something else to do, Now, on the one hand, yesterday was the biggest. I'm from Iowa originally, and it was the biggest day probably in the Iowa State football rivalry. Both these teams in the top 10 in college football, which is kind of amazing. I'm an Iowa fan because that was the team that was always on TV, even though I was much closer to Ames, where Iowa State is. And Iowa put the smackdown on them, which was good. It was fun and everything. Watched it down at Beckett's. It's actually an undercover Iowa Hawkeye bar because of multiple Iowa connections down there.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So if I ever want to watch an Iowa game, they'll always have it on there. So that's fun. And I like the camaraderie associated with and that kind of thing. But really the main reason I brought it up is I've become a pretty big Packer fan after living here for so long. Grew up a Vikings fan because I was from northern Iowa. Minnesota's pro sports are right north of us. But the Vikings are so unlovable.
What does that mean?
Yeah, and I don't mean that in the sense like we need to hate the Vikings because we live in Wisconsin. I mean, man, even when I was a kid, they went to the Super Bowl a little bit before my time and then during my time, but lost every time. Okay, and then from the 80s on, nothing. Got close a little bit, like the year where they had Brett Favre, but just unlikable. These things just keep happening that make them. kind of impossible to remain a fan, especially when I'm here in Wisconsin and the Packers being community owned and being good. It helps.
Good helps.
Team be good.
You know what? There's something to be said for those stubborn, angry fans who stick with it until, like, hey, that's how I feel about the Bucks.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like, now it's sweet.
I know.
Now it is sweet. I want everybody to know out there, Milwaukee born, raised. Now it's sweet right now. Now, did we suffer? We suffered. we got a lot. We got decades of suffering. But you know what? Sweet right now.
That's right. That's right. And that was awesome. That was a sports season that, it was just so fun to watch. But the weird thing is I'm still a Vikings fan too.
Yeah.
Which makes me some kind of unicorn probably because I still follow them kind of begrudgingly. But I become more of a Packers fan. But the main thing on my mind about it is all of a sudden I'm sick of the Packers. I'll probably watch the game.
Bruh.
But this last year, I don't know if it's the Rodgers saga, the pandemic sort of knocking the sales out of things. I don't know. I've lost a little interest there. And otherwise, it's such a likable team, aside from that. I
think Rodgers spoiled some things, right? Because it's the whole, like, Wisconsin has a culture about its sports, right? Mm-hmm. Like, we'll suck it up. We'll take it on the chin. We'll complain. We will complain like all get out. We are not those people. But at the end of the day, I don't feel like the people we celebrate do things that I would perceive as soft. And the Rodgers saga, maybe it's just me. Kosh listeners out there, you can call me out. But it made Rodgers seem soft. Like, I didn't feel that because, what was he really complaining about? I mean, of course, we don't really know.
Yeah, that's the thing.
But maybe it's egregious, but at the end of the day, it seemed like the Packers were ready to bend over backwards to just give you whatever you wanted. Yeah. And you were just like, nah, bro.
Yeah, it's puzzling. And like I said, I waste too much time on it. But I haven't invested much time or thought into the Packers lately. But I don't know where to point the finger. Something went wrong there, and it soured things. Mm-hmm. And it made him look selfish, petty, and all that. But I'm not sure. Maybe behind the scenes, those guys have been jerking him around. I don't know. Yeah. Which it's just too bad because the new coach, the whole thing was coming together so well, and now I'm not excited about the start. That could change once they get rolling and everything's going well, but football was on my mind.
No, I'm with you on that. I don't know what to make of that situation 100% because, of course, we don't know the whole story. But I will say this. There's that whole thing of, like, when Mike McCarthy was coach and there was kind of this thing where and I remember the whispers of Aaron Rodgers was kind of like an uncoachable dude because he was kind of going up on the line and calling what he wanted to call instead of calling what coach wanted to call, right? And so does that play into, you start taking these rumors. I'll call them rumors because we all know. We don't truly know. We're making assumptions as fans. Yeah. We're sideline on ESPN. Yeah. And, you hear that, and then you put that with this, whatever happened this past off season, and then you're kind of thinking, what's up with my man?
Yeah. But that's also the reason I always liked him because, and what's interesting about that, you talk about Wisconsin sports fans and stuff, it's always been a little bit like, I'm not quite sure about this guy, but that's kind of why I liked him because he's not a knucklehead, rough, tough, kind of one of those stereotypical meathead type athletes. I'm saying stereotypical.
Right.
He comes across as a different breed of cat. He's smart. He reads.
He is a different kind of cat.
He's kind of progressive. These are things that I think for some Packers fans have always been like, well, he's good, but when stuff starts to hit the fan, I'm gonna be done with him. So that's not what I'm saying. I'm not necessarily done with him. I'm just the whole situation soured me on him, and now I don't know. Maybe he was always just sort of an aloof, arrogant dude. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens this season.
Yep.
Look, all is forgiven with championships.
I know.
So, if he go on and win a Super Bowl, then this will all be irrelevant.
Yeah, exactly. But it's the first game of the year today as we're talking, so that's what came to mind.
Okay, that's fair. All right, what in the world is going on with people complaining about this $100 that they are giving people who get vaccinated? And this is why I say that. Look, I get it. It seems weird that you would have to put that kind of, I don't know what else to call it other than a bribe. Put that kind of bribe out there. But what I do think is this. I'd rather give the $100 for the vaccination than pay the tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in unpaid health care for those people who may get sick and don't have insurance, and then it ends up getting covered by the taxpayer.
Yeah.
So $100, thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of dollars. You tell me. I think we pay the $100 and invest on the front end, then pay tens, if not hundreds of thousands on the back end. That's just my thought process, because people don't think, I don't know if the people are truly thinking about the fact that if you get sick, and not everybody's getting sick, and you end up in that hospital, there's nothing cheap about that hospital stay.
Right.
And if you ain't got the right kind of insurance, and there's many of us out there who don't, many of us aren't lucky enough to have an all-encompassing healthcare plan. If you're spending a month in the hospital with a ventilator in you, that's probably $100,000. I don't know that for sure, y'all. I'm just saying, but there's no way that it's not tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars.
Not to mention, there's no room for people, and you could be taking a spot that somebody that has some kind of pre-existing serious condition needs that spot. Yeah, that's another thing. So that's my soapbox pitch. $100 on the front end to prevent tens, if not hundreds of $1,000s on the back end. Quit whining. That's what I want to say to y'all. Quit whining. That little $100 out there, and it's probably not even state tax money. It's probably federal money. Mm-hmm. Quit whining. That's how I feel about it. Yeah, it's an investment. It's an investment. I mean, if you're whining about that, chances are good you're against, you have certain ideas about the whole thing.
I have no problem. I have no problem against people who have their apprehension about it.
Yeah, that's
right.
natural.
But and if you don't want to, I'm okay with that too. But don't whine about them finding ways for others to get on board. Get out the way.
And the experience has shown that a little monetary incentive actually works. It can be helpful in getting people who are apprehensive to do it.
Here's what I'm going to say. I actually worked. The reason I picked this is I worked a clinic yesterday, a pop-up clinic, and I helped. It was part of the Hispanic Heritage Month, and I went, and it was amazing. It was just amazing, and I've seen some of these where not that many individuals show up and participate, right. But in this case, you knew who were coming. It was people bringing their children, those children that could, because they're trying to take care of these things, and they want the kids to go to school. They want kids to stay in school. Yeah. And it was what I would say personally a success, because I'm not saying it was this crazy crowd of people or anything like this, but it was enough people that it gave me pause, and I was like, this is awesome. Yeah, this is awesome. And I'm glad that there's some progress being made on that front. Mm-hmm. So, all right. Next segment, word associations. All right. First word, Food.
Tacos.
Facts.
Bruh.
I'm telling you right now, why is tacos the greatest food on earth? I just feel tacos are it. I say tacos and I smile.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt.
What kind of favorite taco? What's your favorite taco? What's your favorite taco place? I need both.
You know, I think, I don't know if I have a favorite place per se. I think getting a taco from a taco truck, an authentic taco truck, is kind of where it's at. I guess my favorite taco is probably the one, if I can determine the one that is the most authentic, and that's a little bit, now that can be sort of a rabbit hole. What makes something authentic or whatever.
Right.
But the ones that the vendor or the restaurant owner, the ones that they really like, that's what I want to try. So I always try to find that out, but it can be a little dicey. Like, what do you recommend? Well, they have their own ideas, but I want to know who, like the typical person that digs your food. What's the real deal there?
What's their go-to?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I can tell you, if I'm going to a Mexican restaurant, I'm always a south of the border taco guy. You know, just give me the meat, the onions, some cilantro, well seasoned meat. Yes. That's happiness on a nice little corn tortilla. But you know what else I like? I like going to places when they've got, you know, that different kind of taco. That's something a little bit, you know. So last week, I went to this place called the Jerk Joint in Appleton, and they had, it's like a Caribbean, so it was a jerk taco, like this jerk and this meat, jerk seasoned, tender, the craziest tender meat, and then it had a mango pico de gallo.
Nice.
And this little heat sauce, and I was like, this is bonkers. And I so big.
Yes.
Big fat shout out to the Jerk Joint in Appleton. Let me tell you something. You handled your business.
That sounds very good. That
Yes.
fusion. I like that sort of recent wave that we've seen the last couple of years of the fusion. You know, whether it's Korean barbecue tacos or something like jerk chicken. Jerk chicken. You got to give a shout out for jerk chicken in general. I just had some of that from now the Caribbean food truck that I don't remember the exact name, that's been at the farmer's market, and they've been at the Brews on the Bay.
Oh yeah.
It's good food. Good food.
My daughter went actually yesterday to the farmer's market, and her boyfriend got the jerk sandwich. Yeah, I think it was a jerk chicken sandwich, and she ranted and raved because apparently it is amazing.
Yeah, it is. It's really good. I think the best chicken I've ever had was jerk chicken. The one time I went to Jamaica from a roadside place where we had a driver that took us from the airport to the place we were staying, and he took us to. This was not a touristy kind of place. I mean, maybe he takes tourists there like us, but this was ramshackle side of the road place, like somebody grilling basically next to the road, and that jerk chicken was awesome. Some of the best food I ever had.
Hey, that's because somebody knew what they was doing.
That's right. That's what I'm saying, though. You follow the person that really knows.
That's right.
And hopefully you're getting the real deal.
I'm going to agree with you on that.
Yep.
Okay. Cocktail or beer?
What comes to mind, I guess, is Fifth Ward Brewery here in Oshkosh, because I sampled some of their beer yesterday down at the Oshkosh Food Co-op. And I know they made a special Sesquicentennial Ale for UWO's birthday party today.
I have never gone there yet.
You should go. It's fun. It's a nice. They've got a good vibe there. You know.
I've heard amazing things about it, but I'm gonna be honest with you. There's one reason I don't go, and that's because I'm not really a beer drinker. I drink cocktails, and I heard they ain't got no cocktails, so therefore, I feel like it ain't made for me.
Well, maybe they'll hear this and maybe they have some pitch for you. I don't know what that pitch would be, but I'm sure they'd like to get you down there.
Well, you know what? If there's ever a timber brew that comes about or the Kosh brew that comes about, I'd be all about it. And yes, I would come celebrate that. And hey, if you're out there listening from Fifth Ward, I'd love to have you on as guests.
Zach and Ian. Yep. Yeah, and these are, you know the story though. They're two pretty young UWO grads that started it.
I've read an article or two.
Yeah. So it's fun. It's fun to see how, relatively quickly they turned that into their own, successful joint in addition to making the beer. And they've got a nice beer garden where they have music in the summer and stuff. So that's what came to mind. Stuff I tasted yesterday was nice. My wife had tasted previously when they released it, this Hot Donna, because they've got a couple That 70s Show themed brews. So it's a red IPA. And she didn't like it, but I tasted it yesterday and thought it was actually quite good. So.
Okay. Netflix.
I guess The Chair, because we were just talking about, I suppose that's what came to mind. It was one of those shows, although I'll talk about a different show in a second, because then my mind went straight to that one. The Chair is enjoyable, and it's kind of fun to have a show about academics, and then you can sort of talk to other academics about what they thought about it.
Right.
And a couple other people I've talked to about it were similarly enthused about it, that they didn't get everything right about it, but enough of the kind of nuances of what it's like to be especially in the liberal arts in a college or university.
Right.
Which has been a bit dicey in recent years. And then talking to a person of color who could totally relate to some of the stuff going on there.
Bruh. Facts.
That's fun. And I was thrown out to some of my colleagues, including Doc Simpson, and the African American Studies program is also part of our sociology department, that could be a fun show to have, African American Studies Club and the Sociology Club students watch, and then have some professor come and talk about it, because the experience as a student is wrapped up in that too, how your professors are feeling and doing and being treated and stuff.
Right.
So I would recommend that show, particularly people that kind of interested in what happens on a college campus, but it's fun in general. David Duchovny from Mulder, X-Files. There we go.
X-Files. Oh, okay.
He appears as himself, which is pretty hilarious. But the other show I want to mention, I really like real crime documentaries, true crime documentaries that are well done. That's been kind of a popular thing, and some of them are better than others. One I just watched was really good. It's called Sophie, a Murder in West Cork. In this rural part of Ireland, and she was French, so there's that plays into it, because the French law says if somebody's murdered on foreign soil, they can do their own inquiry, and they can try the suspect in absentia and put him in jail in France. I won't give away anything in case people want to watch it, but that was just one of many interesting dimensions to that show. Just a short, limited series, but I like those British mystery kind of detective dramas anyway, and this is a real one. So,
okay. Amazon.
The first word that comes to mind is evil.
Bruh. Break it down.
Oh man, I've ordered things from Amazon. We even have the Prime subscription, which I blame on my wife because she has a small business and gets a lot of stuff that she needs for that, and it works well for that. But man, it's caused so much destruction to the American economy, to the environment from all those trucks and all those shipping materials, and then Jeff Bezos just proven to be, what can you say? An out-of-touch tool flying up in a giant penis rocket to space. The whole thing just...
It sets wrong with you?
Oh, yeah. I understand I understand its appeal, and like I said, there are things that are good about it, but overall, evil.
All right, that's fair. I'm gonna tell you, man. I like Amazon.
That's fine.
I'm not counter. I'm gonna tell you why.
Let's hear it.
Amazon is the most equal opportunity shopping experience there is. So, as a person who has shopped, who has been followed, who has been mistreated, guess what? I'm not on Amazon. None of those things.
Yeah, I hear
that.
that.
And so, what I say out there to the retailers is, you got to think about how you've treated people over time, and now that you need us, because there's another option that we don't have to worry about those things. It's something you might have should have thought about a minute ago.
See, that's your sociological mind there in action, man.
And I'm just that is my true life experience in action. But yes,
I know, I totally hear you. I think that's completely legitimate. Thing is, that could be any company. I mean, shopping on the internet has that quality to it, but Amazon does it in a way that's reliable. In addition to giving you that, where you don't have to deal with that. That sort of experience.
But here's my point to that, right? So you're right. Everybody can do it online that's reliable, but guess what I'm not going to do? If I went to Target and I got followed, and I'm not saying I have, so I'm not saying Target, is just what popped in my head. But if I went there and got followed, guess what I'm not going to do? I'm not going to go shop for them online.
No, I hear you there. Yep.
So once it's shot, it's shot.
Yeah.
And since Amazon didn't have no places, no walk-in places where I could have that bad experience,
right?
They have an advantage. Now, I also will say, my other favorite place for retail is Walmart, and I will tell you that one too, because Walmart is also the most equal opportunity shopping experience for in-store, and that is because everyone gets treated poorly. And they don't care who you are. They don't care if you got money or not. You're not catching it good. They just, it is what it is, and everybody. So you know what? If I see something go down, if something goes down there, and it happens to me, I don't think it's because of my tan. I just know it's just it probably happened to the person before me and behind me. It's all good. It's tough in that joint.
That's an interesting take, man.
Hey, when was the last time you been there?
1994.
Oh,
but no, that's why I love having conversations, and that's why I love sociology, because I still stand by my take on Amazon.
Yes.
But your perspective based on your experience is totally legit. And that's what our field is all about, is trying to understand how somebody else could look at the same thing that you think is evil and see the opposite.
Right. Absolutely.
And I know, and I know that's an interesting thing. Like, okay, retailers, just like you were saying, if you want to, bricks and mortar retailers, you want to survive, then maybe you need to be paying attention, learning some lessons from certain segments of the population that don't necessarily want to send Jeff Bezos to space, but they like not being harassed and targeted and discriminated against at your stores.
Yes.
So you should try to do everything you can to make it a truly welcoming place.
And it may not be that bad now. I just may be having old school feelings, because I feel as of right now, retailers are probably very careful because of the opportunity of people to put things on social media and for them to go like wildfire and do that. So, I mean, I'm sure there is greater caution than what there used to be, but what can I say?
But you'd hope that they would proactively just want to be welcoming and inclusive.
Yes, absolutely.
And create a place where everybody feels like they belong. And That's going to be better for business anyway. It shouldn't take all this other stuff to make that happen, but that's life in America.
Better for business, better for the community, better for us as neighbors, as residents sharing these spaces. It's just better.
Okay.
All right. Diversity.
Yeah. That's where it's at. That's the first thing that comes to mind. That's where it's at. Diversity is one of those buzzwords, as you well know, that has been kind of used and abused and co-opted and misunderstood and stuff. But I still say that's where it's at. It's just that it's become that way because as a society, we haven't lived up to the ideals and the potential of this place. So it's had to be pushed as an agenda, which isn't good for people really on either side of it. If you're afraid of diversity, feel like somebody's trying to shove it down your throat. Mm-hmm. If you're into it, it's not good either because it's like it's contrived and forced. That doesn't help that much either. But true, appreciation, celebration of diversity and, just to diverse people, interactions, perspectives. That's what makes human life, interesting and rewarding, fun, meaningful. That's my take on it.
We'll touch on it later, at least from my perspective.
Yeah, so don't get me wrong, though. I think the fact that diversity hasn't been celebrated and appreciated like it should have been, it still needs to be pushed in institutions like you're doing with the city of Appleton and like we're doing at Oshkosh now. Because otherwise the status quo will revert to the status quo, and the status quo is one in which, the majority group dominates and other experiences and people and voices and such are pushed to the sideline. So we need that until we reach what did Stevie Wonder say? Higher ground.
I think it's bigger than that right at this point. I think right now, to be perfectly honest, I think there is an economic we have to do this. We have to come to terms with diversity and inclusion because of the economics of it, right? There's a lot of stuff that we justify through the government and what are we going to do because what's good for business, right? Shoot, business even got to be labeled an individual, so it had rights, right, for our voting and stuff, right?
Well, I need your bruh button.
Oh,
bruh.
And so the way I look at it is like this. Right now, there's this thing that since the 80s and 90s, we have been told that when these baby boomers retire, we ain't gonna have enough workers. Right. And so we sat here and right now we got a bunch of people complaining about how there's not enough workers, but they're thinking it's because of this $300 for the unemployment. Yeah. Right. But they were telling you back in the 80s and 90s that this was happening. And guess where we're at right now? We're at the point in which those baby boomers have started retiring. Mm-hmm. And the pandemic has only made them retire quicker. Mm-hmm. So we have a shortage of individuals. And what that means is we either find a way to fill these spots. And what we may have to do, or what we're going to have to do, is we're going to have to fill these spots with the individuals that were not necessarily getting the opportunities prior. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And there was an organization I worked for. I ain't going to say who that was, but there was an organization I worked for, and there was a point in time where there was 2,000 less constituents of a certain type where they realized that there's this shortfall of these 2,000 individuals who would normally sit in these seats that we need to keep functioning. Mm-hmm. And then they go back and look at the trends, and they realized, oh, this trend has been trending downward. And these 2,000 seats were white individuals, right? And that these numbers were not picking up. So, but they needed to fill these seats. The seats had to get filled because they needed them to continue to function. And so what they had to do was they had to go out there and say, well, how can we fill the seats if who we've primarily been advertising to, is searching for, trying to fill the seats with, just don't flat out exist? Well, guess what? They had to figure out that, oh, wait, international individuals. Oh, wait, people of color. Oh, wait, people outside of the region. These kinds of things we had to do to fill these seats. And I think that is exactly where private sector business is at right now. And they may not have come to terms with it that, okay. And now what they've got to do is they got to go back and say, we got to fix our environments.
Yep.
We got to get our cultures in place so we can actually retain these individuals. It's one thing to get the individuals in your door and give them an opportunity, but if it's highly uncomfortable, they got choices.
Yep.
So you got to get your culture together. So if somebody want to hang out there for a minute and actually stay and give you their quality, this other insight, this other point of view to help the business grow, to maybe give you a new constituency to cater to, or to sell to,
new products even.
Correct. And so I think that's where we're at, and I bring all that up is we are at the point that diversity isn't about just saying, okay, let's kumbaya. Right now, it's about how do I keep my business functioning because I need people to fill these spots.
Yeah, and I think the institution, the example that you gave is a nice microcosm of what's happening around the country. And that was astute of you to bring up because it took a while. I was sitting on hearing a lot of similar things for a while there, just thinking, no, what you're saying is just patently false, that well, we're dealing with this problem because of a demographic issue. Well, look at the demographics. You're looking at the wrong demographics.
Right.
You're looking at the traditional constituents or customers or whatever.
Right.
The less traditional, the people more on the margins have been growing.
By leaps and bounds.
Yeah. So this narrative is just flat out false, and I don't hear it so much now, thankfully, but it took way too long.
It did,
and I think you're right that, and you're seeing some businesses and institutions around the country are getting it, and they're saying, well, maybe it's because we're still paying $7.25 an hour. That might be part of it. Maybe we need to pay people a little bit more, and then maybe we need to think how they're feeling when they come in the door, just like you're saying, all those things.
Yeah. Absolutely. I just think, like all things, it's complex. But I guarantee you this, the traditional answers that have been used in the past no longer hold true. You will not find your way out of this in an old mindset.
Yep. And one other thing I want to throw out there that's sort of along those lines is, just in case we don't come back to it, is even some of the terminology that we use. It's hard. I mean, it's hard to find terms that aren't problematic in some way. If you think about the three main words that get used in this arena: diversity, inclusion, equity. Yep. If people are interested in this topic and not aware of this guy named John Powell, he directs a thing called the Othering and Belonging Institute out at Cal Berkeley. He's an interesting dude, and he's got a different approach to thinking about these things, and essentially is saying that what we need to get to is belonging.
That is the term that I have been using in
Nice.
my new opportunity. I find that it's sad, but diversity has become a divisive word. Equity has become a divisive word because everybody thinks diversity feels forced. Equity feels like, from what I've been told, for there to be equity, what are you taking from me? what are you taking from me to make it equitable for other people? And they don't realize it's never about taking from you. Right. It's just about raising everybody up. Yep. So things are fair. I like the term fair, right? Because I don't believe there's a point of true equity.
Right.
But I do believe we can get to spaces where there's at least a fairness about things, right? And so, but you're right. The words right now have the only word that I don't feel has that edge or has that pushback is inclusion. And to me, inclusion and belonging are interchangeable. I can kind of work them together.
Yeah, and I guess I see it a little differently, though I understand where you're coming from. And this John Powell guy, it's just another way of thinking about it. He definitely sees them differently. And there's a video. If you just Google it, John Powell video belonging, he breaks down exactly why, in a much clearer way than I can. And just in a nutshell, though, inclusion has this. It's good. The premise is good, but it's got this connotation like it's begrudging. Like, okay, you can be included. You can sit at the table. But I think I've always thought that integration is a better word, though it's got baggage. But are you actually woven into the fabric of what's going on? Mm-hmm. The word that he uses for that higher level is belonging. Do you actually belong at the table? Are you welcomed, respected? And he has this concept of breaking that the bonds when you're equity sounds good in principle too, but people think it's taking away. But he's basically saying it involves distribution of resources, which implies competition, like breaking of bonds, however you slice it. We got to get to fairness. If people start belonging more, we'll get there. And that's kind of my thing too. Like if we can build true community, which is difficult, that's a whole fuzzy word too. Mm-hmm. But if we can build that in reality, in neighborhoods, in institutions, then these other things over time will start to work themselves out. So for him, it's that concept of belonging.
I'm feeling that. All right. Last word. Music.
Music's good. I love music. I played some music yesterday with a buddy of mine. I'll share save some of the details for the shout out portion of the podcast because I want to give a couple shout outs related to that. But
wait, I didn't tell you. You can shout out all through the show. You didn't know. That's what we do. We shout out,
bro.
that's how we
just want to make sure I have material for later.
Fair enough.
But I think that actually fits pretty well. It's a nice segue from diversity because it's cliche, but music crosses boundaries, really obviously. And I'll give an example from yesterday. My buddy Joe and I, Stumble Brothers, we play cover songs, and it's for fun and entertainment. So we were the entertainment for the Oshkosh Food Co-op's grand opening party yesterday. You start playing, and there was a relatively diverse group of people outside in the festivities, and immediately we're playing some song that a lot of people would, I don't know what song, but a lot of people would probably find it, cheesy. I don't know, not the very cutting edge song. People started dancing though right away. Black people, white people dancing together back there.
What? Let me guess. Were you doing Al Green?
No.
I'm just playing.
That's what I'm saying, though. It would have made more sense if we were doing something. No, it's like, I can't remember what song it was. Probably some, acoustic version of a 90s rock song is a lot of what we do.
Okay.
So there was that. People, it doesn't matter. There's a little groove going on there. People
That's
start
right.
moving and they're interacting with each other. It's beautiful. Like I said, it's going to sound a little cliche, but the best, though, was this... there's this boy, I don't know how old he was, I'm not sure what his race or ethnicity was. But the bigger point is his age. I think he was probably like 8 years old, and he was just watching us. Maybe he was 9, 10. I don't know. He was watching us really intently, and there weren't that many people out there. We get done with the song. Who's clapping and cheering? This kid. He's clearly into it. He comes and sits right behind us later, and he just says, "It's like one of the best things I ever heard. I really like your music." For some reason, it really clicked with this guy, and hopefully, maybe that'll spark something if he's not doing music already. That, hey, that looks fun. I should do that too.
You know what? No, kids are honest. So you know what that says? Like, because if it wasn't, he wouldn't have said none.
I know, and I loved how direct too. It's like, sounds good, guys. Nope, I like your music.
That's fantastic. That awesome. Makes that's so good. All right.
The whole thing was a success after that. It didn't matter what else happened. This kid liked our music, so
that facts. All right, I'm gonna send a call out to the Kosh listeners out there. What I want to know is, okay, so I'm not gonna lie, I took some time to listen to Kanye's new album. I want to know how y'all feel about it. I just want to know how people feel about Kanye's new album, because Kanye be on some stuff. And the only thing I'm going to say is this. I appreciate Kanye for the fact that he truly views himself as an artist. Like no ifs, ands, or buts. He don't care what y'all think. Kanye make Kanye music. Whatever that means at that point in time, and there's an evolution to it, right? Because he don't never make two albums that sound the same. Right. He be in a different space. That's exactly what he's gonna make at that time. And so, I just want to know what y'all feel. Please hit me up, reach out, send us emails at askthekosh@gmail.com. I just want to know what y'all thinking about Kanye, because he a wild boy.
I hope you get some feedback. That'd be fun to hear what people think. I haven't heard that record, but he's certainly an interesting cat.
He is. He just is. All right. Next segment. Kosh, the Kosh hidden gems. What's a hidden gem that you really like around here in the Kosh?
Yeah, I guess what comes to mind for me is outdoor spaces. And I think there are some places that I really like that maybe other people, not that many other people would go to. But I guess it also depends on whether you disc golf or not, because I'm not good at it, but I really enjoy it because it just gets me out there doing something active, and it's not just going for a walk, which I go for a walk every day with my wife in Menominee Park because we live across the street, so I'm not bashing walking. I'm just saying it's something different.
Right.
And, compared to some places, we don't have awesome, top-notch disc golf courses in Oshkosh. The Appleton area's got some that are better because they have more geographical advantages, or geological ones, I guess. Hills.
All right. Trees, hills. All right, fair.
Things like that. But the two that we have in town still have their spots that are really cool and unique. So at County Park, I wrote a story about this for Oshkosh Independent, which is now defunct, sadly. And I don't even think you can find the story on the internet now. I really had fun writing that story too. I went and interviewed the county park director, and then I kind of talked about the history of the course and stuff. But what's been cool to see is evolution of that course over time. Because when I first came, it had a lot of holes, but there wasn't a lot of interest there, that like physical interest to the place. I don't need challenge. I'm not talking about that. If anybody's a disc golfer out there, I'm not talking about like I need more challenge. No, I'm not very good. Like I said, it's just it wasn't an interesting space to walk through really, and that's really changed. They created some hills out there, and hills change they do something.
Right.
Like humans respond to things like that, woods and hills and so forth. when they widened County A or something, there was a bunch of dirt that needed to go somewhere, and the county said, let's take it. And they put it on the edge along the Sunnyview, whatever that road is, that Y that goes there.
Right.
So now you see those hills there, and those are a really cool feature of the course. And beyond that, they planted a bunch of native plants there, which I'm kind of into native plants for a variety of reasons. So if you go there around now, for example, just a diversity of plants and bees and birds, you'll see all kinds of birds because they're attracted to these flowers too. Right. So you went from having this kind of boring, flat space to something, and that didn't offer much in the way of diversity as far as plants go either. And they have, or animals.
Right.
But now they've woven these native prairie plant gardens throughout the park too. So the average,
yeah, that's good old Bosco.
The average user of County Park will notice it too. If you're out there to rollerblade or run or whatever, there's all kinds of cool native plants. And then the other disc golf course in Red Arrow Park next to West High has its charms too. I mean, it actually has a hill that was also built by humans through Garbage Hill.
Garbage Hill, yep.
There are 3 different holes, I think, or 4 maybe, that where the hill plays a pivotal role. But the other part about that I've noticed is across the creek there from where the disc golf course is. I mean, the course also runs along this creek, which is cool because you can see egrets and herons and things right there while you're disc golfing. Stuff that I guess for me is a hidden gem, because if I hadn't been out there in a park that you're driving by, it doesn't look that great.
Okay.
When you get out there,
right.
Hey, actually, it doesn't take that much. You got some trees, you got some water, you're going to get cool animals. And in recent years, I don't really know. This is a hidden gem that I don't even know how it came about, but it's part of whatever the assisted living or that complex is over there. Evergreen, maybe. They have apartments sitting along there. Mm. But it seems like it's public space, and there's a lot of nice trees and plants and stuff are in there now too. And one day I'm disc golfing there right in the city, and there's a deer over there, which isn't that surprising, but it just tells you that, again, you just have to have these little pockets of nature and cool things happen. So that's the kind of stuff that I look for in Oshkosh. And there are more. I could go on and on about hidden gems like that. What I'd like to see us do is to try to proactively create more of those spaces, sort of like that example from County Park. Like when we're doing downtown development along the river, this has not happened yet, and I'm waiting for it to, where some developer that's going to put in, and maybe it's going to be this company that did the Brio building where the co-op is going to set aside part of that space to create a little pocket of nature intermingled with, because what you have now is just trees. It's like totally too man-made kind of thing. It's okay. Fine, but it doesn't necessarily do those other unique things like we've seen in other places.
Okay.
So that's what I got for that.
Well, the next segment that I was going to go to was, what does the Kosh need? But you might have covered that. Is there something? hey. Bruh. So is there something else that the Kosh might need, or do you want to leave it at that?
I think more of that, little pockets of nature, and kind of going along with that, I guess, would be more connected bike trails that get people around town and off the streets so they don't get hit by cars and killed by them. I got hit by a car once. I obviously didn't get killed, but I got plopped onto my head. Thankfully, I was wearing a helmet. I was on the way to teach sociology of the modern city, the class I'm teaching right now. I got T-boned by a car.
Ooh.
That,
ooh.
What did he say? He claimed,
Bruh.
Yeah, it was a bright sunny day in the morning, and he claimed that he couldn't, what was it? He couldn't see well? I don't know, but I was like, I'd just been on his hood, and then he sees me on his hood and panics, slams on the brakes. I go flying off the hood onto my head. He's freaking out. That's fine. Okay, I'm not dead. But then he tries to give me these excuses, and I was like that kid. No, Truth is, you didn't stop. I could see it out of the corner of my eye. You didn't stop, so shut up.
That's what you're at.
You didn't stop. And you know what? People don't pay attention to pedestrians and bicyclists enough. So, I think there have been some good changes, like with Jackson Street, making that that's probably a polarizing topic, but making that a turn-only lane in the middle, slowing things down. We need more of that and more dedicated spaces for bicyclists. I think if you asked me this question 5 years ago, the first thing that would have come to mind would probably be more businesses owned by people of color, which we still need. But there's been progress in that regard. I've seen some good evolution in terms of people of color owning businesses, and then just kind of being more naturally woven into what's happening when you go around town. So that's been a good thing to see.
Oh yeah. Well, I don't know. I guess my point of view might be different because I've been woven about this town for about 30 years. So my point of view might be just a little bit different, and that's just definitely because I've just been here.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, and there's a long ways to go. So don't get me wrong. I'm just saying there are visible positive changes in that regard that I've noticed, which is good. Just more, it's more interactions and just seeing people out and about that are of all kinds of different backgrounds, just naturally doing things that any person would do, like walk their dog, like I saw on the way to your house just now.
Yeah. Just
seeing more of that. It's not just the same sorts of people that you associate with Oshkosh here, and it's becoming, it's starting to.
Oh, it's been happened. We're at the point now that it's happened.
Yeah,
it's not in progress. It's progressed.
Yeah, it has.
And this is a different Kosh, but we might end up talking about that a little bit later.
Cool.
Next segment, the Naughty/Heroes Corner. This is your opportunity to nominate somebody to the Naughty or to the Heroes Corner. It's not an individual necessarily, but it can be, or an organization. You can nominate to both if you choose to. Where are we going?
I guess what comes to mind for the Naughty Corner is not specific people, but parents that keep acting like knuckleheads in different spheres. And so I'm referring to parents who are putting high school sports in jeopardy of being able to function because they can't get enough refs to ref games. I mean, come on, people. Take these things way too seriously, and you wreck it for your own kids. They're also learning from you about how to behave, which is not good. And then parents being crazy with school boards around the country, and lashing out at school boards and people who work in public health, just irrationally. This is not helpful. This is not helpful to anyone. You can have your opinions about things, but to go straight to that name calling place and kind of harassing sort of place, that's something that I think everyone listening, I'm sure, recognizes, but that's what comes to mind for me. Like, chill out and just take stock of what's going on in your world and before you start lashing out at people. Thank you. For heroes, I guess I would. What comes to mind is two things. We were talking earlier before we started recording, and Timber asked me, "Well, what have I written about lately?" And I just did a couple posts for this thing that hasn't really taken off yet, but I'm still trying to make it take off, called Oshkosh and Beyond. It's similar to the Kosh podcast. They're actually trying to do similar things. We should maybe talk about that some other time. But basically, the idea with Oshkosh and Beyond, which is only a Facebook page at this point, is to be a portal for stories. Sort of like, kind of along the lines of what you're doing here. who's doing interesting things that otherwise people might not hear about, or what's an interesting place, that sort of thing. It's a portal for stories. So the last two that I put up there, one was about Kenny Hoopla. He's a musical artist from Oshkosh. So if you're interested in that, the Northwestern actually just had it. That was the premise of my article. I interviewed this guy a year ago, and for a variety of reasons, I didn't get the article that I wanted to get done. And then a year later, the Northwestern beats me to it.
Oh, bruh.
Well, I mean, that's their job. I just do this other stuff on the side. So, and it was good for him. He was the top article, the top fold of the paper about this young black man from Oshkosh. It was great, but I was like, oh man, I missed it. And not only did I not break the story, which is selfish thought, but I kind of feel like, well, I wasted his time, because I called him on the phone when he was in this big studio in New York City, talked for a while, and then I didn't do anything with it. But now I have done something with it. But the premise was, okay, I got scooped by the Northwestern. That's cool. I still have interesting things that I have from this transcript, these notes I took, that are worth sharing. So you can find my piece about Kenny Hoopla on Oshkosh and beyond on Facebook. And the reason I wanted to highlight him, I guess it's a little shout out too. I guess that's only natural if you're talking about the Hero's Corner. But this is a kid that well, he's not a kid now. He's a young man, but he sort of came out of nowhere. And the reason I want to do the story is, here's a guy that's now been in the top 10 on the Billboard charts for 2 different songs, and the average person in Oshkosh wouldn't have heard of him. And that's the kind of thing, kind of like what you're doing. Let's get this stuff out there so people know about it and can celebrate it and learn something from it,
I'm with it. You know what? Can you get me hooked up with him? You think he'd like to come on the Kosh?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'll see what I can do. He's very busy, so part of the reason I didn't feel like I had enough to write that article the way I wanted to. I was missing some information, and I couldn't get through to him after that first. Well, he actually followed up and sent me some stuff, but then he's been literally traveling the world doing music, collaborating. The latest song of his that was this is just in May 2021, was in the top 10, reached number 8 on the alternative airplay charts, was a collaboration with Travis Barker, who's the drummer for Blink-182, which is a huge band. And he had a headlining tour in England and stuff. So, I mean, I don't blame the guy.
He's busy.
But his brother, Brandon Williams, he'd be a cool person to have on here too.
Okay.
Brandon Williams, DJ B-Whoop, is a guy that I met when he was involved with some Black Lives Matter movement, local stuff. And then it turned out he was brothers with Kenny Hoopla, a guy that I'd been hearing on the radio. So this kind of this full circle thing happened. So he might be able to hook you up.
Okay.
We'll talk about that.
All right.
And the other one, just real quick, was about this Afghan resettlement process that's going on. So I think there are a lot of angles that you could take to say somebody's a hero, but the specific person that I focused on in this other piece on Oshkosh and beyond, I think you could consider him a hero. He's a very interesting guy, an Afghan person who came here on a SIV, a special immigrant visa, that's these people that there's this other status that I'd never heard of. This
the parolee.
Yeah, that whole thing. That's for people that don't yet have the SIV, and maybe they won't get it, But he had it because he served as an interpreter with the U.S. for 6.5 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And read the story on Oshkosh and Beyond there, because it's mostly quotes from him about how, what that was like. And so if you think of interpreter, it's different than I think the reality. I think, somebody that's helping in an office decipher. No, he was out there in firefights. He said for 16, 17 hours a day. And I don't want to give it all away because I want you to go read it. But But just one of the most uplifting personalities I've ever met. We were in his house. He's managed to become a homeowner. He's managed to, even though, if you're a year away from getting a bachelor's degree in Afghanistan, he's studying law. Are they going to count that and let you transfer into a place like UWO or Lawrence and say, okay, sure? No, they don't do that, which happens to immigrants of all kinds, but especially refugees that, they don't have any, they didn't want to leave. And we don't need to get into what's a refugee versus SIV and all that, but no, they did give him some credit at the tech though. And he finished his associates. And then the last I talked to him, he was starting work on a bachelor's degree. And, but he said every single second of every day he's thinking about his parents and siblings back home. And this was long before this Taliban takeover. Just imagine what's going on with him and people like him now.
Right.
Where their people are in limbo and they may be having a hard time figuring out where they are and stuff. So I'd give a shout out to a guy that we're calling Jawad. That's not his real name, but just an amazing person.
So here's what I'm going to tell for the Kosh listeners. What we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we're going to get links for these stories that Paul is talking about, and we'll be able to connect you through them through the information of the podcast.
Sounds good.
All right. Okay. We are at that time. It is time for the topic of the week. As you know, the guest always picks the topic of the week, and this week's topic of the week is
Modern Family.
Modern Family. All right, I'm not gonna lie, I had something to do with this this time, but when I asked Paul how he felt about it, and I explained it to him, he was like, "Oh, I like that.
Mm-hmm.
That works." All right, so all right, Modern Family, let's go.
Yeah, and I can't tell you much about the TV show of that name because though I've seen it, I haven't seen it very often. Great show though, funny. I think the reason that Timber suggested that is maybe just why'd you suggest it, and then I can jump off of that.
All right, I suggested Modern Family is because there's a lot of people. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a huge fan of the show because the show is hilarious. But what I do think it does is it goes to show like what is the new family in America. It's changing. There's different looks to it, right? There's still a lot of tradition to a lot of families, but there's a lot more families out there now who don't necessarily have the old school traditional look. And in this case, Paul has a modern family. So
yeah, that works. Yeah. And I guess part of that is families that are bicultural or, of multicultural, multiracial, that's a demographic fact that there are more and more families like that.
Gender, I mean, right. There's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what demographers have been predicting for years, that this is going to become more and more. Than some people are scared of that. Other people say about time, and I'm in that latter category that I think it's great, though it's all an evolution, it's all an evolution because we have a great example of a modern family next door. And when I was a younger person, having grown up even with a multicultural family myself, because my mom is from Norway. So I think I had a little bit of it, and I spent a lot of time there. I had a little different experience. I was very privileged to be able to go to Norway a lot and have a different way of looking at the world. But, back when I was younger, I probably would have been scared by some elements because it was different, to be a homosexual person and to be in the LGBTQ community back in this rural town that I'm from back in those days was undercover. I can't think of anybody that was out back then. Now I have an awesome newish neighbors who are in the LGBTQ community with a wonderful son who is he just brings so much joy to the neighborhood, really. And so that's another example right there next door, which is it's just really cool. And I'm certainly glad that over time, I mean, just going to college and growing up a little bit, you know, nothing to be scared of with a situation like that. And you know, my hope as an educator is that students, if they're coming from a similar situation where they haven't had a lot of interaction with diverse people, different types of families, or people from different racial, ethnic categories, or gender identity or sexual orientation categories, that they can have that spark and have that start to open up, and then that'll hopefully lead them to have their own personal interactions where, like, why was I worried about that? That was dumb. So in our case, we have a multi-continental family in that our daughters were both born in Ethiopia, and, you know, we adopted them. And that's been an amazing thing, challenging, but, you know, life-changing, amazing experience. You know, so we've got two white people and two people that would identify as black in our family, but their situation's unique because they're growing up with white parents. They're actually originally from a very different part of the world with a very different, really interesting culture, you know, and so that there's a lot of stuff wrapped up in that makes it particularly interesting, and it can be challenging, though. You know, our girls they're resilient and cool, and they just sort of, they roll with it, and they get it. They understand what's going on. It's not always easy, but they make it relatively easy to be parents in a different sort of situation in our little modern family.
What is now? You know, I have a modern family myself, so this topic is near and dear, and I know a lot of people with, and I love this term, modern family, because I think it's fitting, right? I think it's the best description of the diversity that's happening in family nowadays, right?
Yeah,
it's modernized. It's today. Right?
Yeah, I could see that. It's just sort of straightforward. It's not saying, it's not laden with it's just the fact. That's just a fact. There are more and more families that are different in all kinds of different ways.
Right.
So, you know, and I think it sounds like you would probably say something similar, that it's awesome. I mean, it makes life interesting, and it's just that's our life. It's not like we set out to create some interesting, challenging life. It's just that's the path life took us.
Yes,
but we're happy it did.
Correct.
It makes for an interesting life. So
definitely has its interesting things that have happened, and continue to happen. But I do think it gives us. In my case, my family, my wife, my daughter, we get a lot of different perspectives. We get to see a lot of things, and a lot of, you know, and me personally, I think it gives you the opportunity sometimes to sit at tables that you might not have normally gotten to sit at. And sometimes when you're sitting at those tables, there's some truths that come out that you didn't know that's what is said at those tables. Or that's how people feel at those tables. And so, and then it also gives you the opportunity sometimes to show the humanity of it all. And that family's family. The cultures can be different, but the greater purpose is common.
Yeah.
And that the differences in the big picture may be personally big, but societally small.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah, I think that's a really interesting way to think about it too, that you get to sit at different tables. And, you know, for you, that might look different than the way that looks for me. but
yeah,
it does. For example, well, I mean, we've had the opportunity to go to Ethiopia several times now over the years, related to the adoption process, but once as a whole unit to go back on vacation and to go back to where, where the girls are originally from and so forth. Just deep, mind-blowing stuff, but also just fun vacation stuff on the same trip. But, man, just experiences that are really, really super cool that I think Ethiopians, just with this example, are really welcoming to strangers and generous people. So I think most people could go there and have experiences like this. But on the other hand, because we have these Ethiopian kids, there's another level to it because the people around you then gravitate to those kids. So that's been really interesting, But for example, just because this pops into mind, this example of the Ethiopians being generous. That if you're just a white person like me traveling in Ethiopia, you might have a similar experience. We were heading over there to meet our older daughter for the first time, but we were doing a little bit of traveling in the northern part of the country first. Which now that it'd be hard to travel there because there's been basically a civil war happening in the last year or two, which is very sad. There are a lot of different ethnic groups and cultures that within the country is not monolithic in any way. So, but there is this spirit of generosity, I think, that transcends all those divisions there in Ethiopia too. So we're at this place in the city called Lalibela, and you kind of think about some of the stuff we were talking about before, like who gets included and who gets left out of things like the wonders of the world, right? These,
right.
I would challenge. It'd be interesting to hear if any of your listeners have ever heard of the stone churches of Lalibela in Ethiopia. These are churches. I want to say there are something like 13 of them that are carved out of granite, solid granite. Like,
bruh.
In, I think, the 1300s. Now that 13 number, I might be off slightly, but this was way back before any kind of modern machinery or technology or anything. They had a very sophisticated culture in lots of the world, including Africa, including Ethiopia, and this King Lalibela said that God told them they needed to build these churches that are all interconnected and carved out of solid granite little formations, small mountainous type formations. And they're amazing. How did they do it? It's mind-boggling how they could possibly have done it. That's about all I'm going to say about it. But we were there. We were staying at this hotel nearby, and I think we were the only people staying at the hotel. And it was just a really interesting time. It was a kind of a bustling small village, but I couldn't believe it. Sitting out on the balcony, I'm gonna try to cut this short to get to the point, but sitting out on the veranda after we got settled in, and it was like a loud buzz, but like if you're in Chicago or Milwaukee or something, there's a buzz of the city,
right?
But that buzz is going to be car noise, all machinery noise,
right?
This buzz was of people walking and talking, donkeys braying, birds singing. It was amazing. Like nothing modern machinery oriented, cars or anything. So that was something. We're sitting out there just kind of blowing my mind, and then all of a sudden we hear this call. Hello. Come have coffee. I invite you. We look down, and it's this young lady who I come to find out is 17 or 18. She's finished in high school. And cynical American training, you're like, what do they want?
We are tainted as Americans.
I know. And first thought is, well, tourists come there and they interact with them for some purpose. Nope. She'd never seen a tourist before, never seen a white person before.
Oh.
She was just carrying out hospitality, Ethiopian style. A teenage girl. And she says, come over for coffee. And we're like, us? Are you yeah, you, come on. So we went over there, and she's got this 2-room house that she shares with her family. But she's the one that does it all. Her parents weren't there or anything. They were off working or whatever. And all of a sudden, all these other kids come in from the neighborhood. But she goes into a back room, comes out with the traditional clothes for the area. Each region, each group has traditional clothes, this beautiful dress. Okay. And then she does this coffee ceremony. We sit there for like 2 hours. Doesn't want anything. Just wanted to invite us to coffee. So this is just an example of when I think if you just kind of go out of your comfort zone, these kind of things will happen. But our modern family sort of facilitated this interesting experience, and that's been really cool. And I think even here in the U.S., it's been neat how it's facilitated interactions with African Americans too that may not have happened because they see our kids and they want to ask how they're doing, and it just leads to cool interactions. If we're out in diverse spaces, that's why these things all kind of tie together.
Yes. Yes. And the reason I said, about being invited to these tables is, and definitely not international, but I'm born and raised Milwaukee,
right?
And my wife is born and raised Kosh, right? And learning about the Kosh for what it not as a visitor, but truly what the Kosh is about. Its traditions, because it has them.
Mm-hmm.
There is a culture to Oshkosh, who the people are, and what their and work ethic, how they look at the world, and being invited in these spaces that I don't know if many people of color have gotten the opportunity to be in a very comfortable way, where I was not only welcome, but I was invited and asked back all the time, and maybe became part of the set, part of the group.
Belonging.
Yes, I and at this point, I've been around long enough that there's not a question in my mind. I belong here. And I don't think anybody else is questioning that either at this point. So, but I do. It was unique to see, to learn, because I know there's others who haven't had that opportunity to get as close and being invited and have these conversations, and even understand some of the whys.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the hope would be that, like you said, Oshkosh has progressed, and hopefully that means that those doors will start opening more and more over time. That people will have the chance to meet and create relationships, and more people get invited to the table, just to feel like they belong. I think that is what's been lacking in Oshkosh, diversity wise, for a lot of the time that I've been here. From what I've gathered, is just that feeling like, yeah, I mean, maybe I'm tolerated, in 2010, but do I feel like I belong? I think many people would say no, and they probably still would, but there's hopefully more that are saying, no, I'm actually feeling welcomed. That's a big thing. That I think that when you're privileged to be in the majority group, whatever the setting is, you don't have to think about something so fundamental like, can I feel comfortable just being here, being who I am right now? Yeah. That's the thing that people don't think about because they don't have to.
Simple things like going out to eat and not catching the extra looks.
Exactly.
Just very simple, basic things. Same thing with going to have a libation somewhere. Just being able to go sit somewhere
and not have the record go.
Well, I don't even find that, but where individuals don't feel like they have to come and interview you to figure out why are you here, right? Because that's really what it amounts to, is there's an interview process.
Yeah.
When people want to come and figure out, okay, so who are you? What do you do? Da, 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 and all these other things, instead of just being like having a drink like I'm having a drink.
Yeah. And, for people like me, that is basically never an issue. The one kind of funny thing that comes to mind, because geographically it's close to where we both live. I won't say the name of the place, but I was doing a little tavern tour with my dad and brother-in-law shortly after we moved here, and discovered some places that I never returned to, and this is one of them. And this is as a white dude, but I also, I could see visible signs that people who weren't white would be explicitly not welcome there. I'm like, no, thank you. But it's so hilarious. We walk in the door, and the guy I presume to be the owner says, "What the F are you doing there?" But he said the actual F word. Get a beer. Said free pool in the window. But, the thing that a lot of white people don't understand is that a lot of people who aren't white have probably been dealing with that same basic thing. Maybe it's said through a look their whole lives. And that's what I try to get students to think of. This is new to them. Just imagine if that were your reality. And that's why the fundamental concept in the field is sociological imagination. You have to imagine, because you can't experience it for yourself. But just try to think about what that would be like. Every place you go, somebody's giving you that look like, what the F are you doing here? And I'm going to eyeball you and follow you around a store or whatever. So hopefully over time there's less of that happening.
I personally, and all I can give is my experience. Yes, a lot less. And
that's good.
And I just think at this point, there's just been enough change, and whereas change is one of those things. I don't know if people think like, if I complain about it enough, it'll start to reverse itself or something. But now I think that there has been enough change that there's an understanding that there's nothing. The change will only continue to move forward. So I better find ways to work within it, to work with it, to understand it, to accept it. And maybe if not anything else, just not to per se verbally really fight it. Right? Where there's that true battle against it, where I'm like, I don't like it. I don't hear that as much. I don't hear that kind of thing very often at all. And maybe it's just who my circles are, or the way, or the tables I'm sitting at. But I don't feel that hardly at all anymore. It's kind of more like yep. It is what it is. Yep. It's changed.
Yeah, and I think the thing is the subtle resistance, or the subtle lack of change, progress, is what it'll take longer. And that's, my brain went back to the topic, modern family, and then I'm thinking about my kids. And I know from experience from the last couple of years that in the Oshkosh schools, for example, there's a long ways to go to where what's being put in place and carried out in the classroom and in the school buildings is geared towards making sure that everyone belongs there. And I could give lots of examples that have been quite frustrating as a parent of someone from a modern family, as a sociologist, as some dude that lives in Oshkosh. So, I mean, but it's sort of like you're saying, you got to keep plugging away at it until people start to realize that for us to do our jobs well, we have to like bump this up. So like you're saying with businesses, we want to survive. This has to bump further up on the priority list. I don't think we're there in words with the public school system in Oshkosh, but the actual change is going to take time.
Well,
especially if it remains sort of acknowledged but not really
it can't
addressed head on.
Here's the thing. We're past that point. I just think that we're at a point in the system that they just don't know what to do because they, for so long, tried to pretend as if the things didn't happen. But the Oshkosh School District is at a point that the Oshkosh School District is 25% students of color.
I know.
1 in 4. 1 in 4. So it's one of those things like sometimes you looking at it and you're looking at it and you realize change is happening, but then someone has to tell you, oh, this is how far it is. So I've noticed this has been happening, but I really didn't think anything about it. I've just been looking at it. And now you're telling me that our school district is 25% students of color. Didn't realize that we're actually going to have to do something to try to help with the acclimation and education and programming for these students, because now they're 1 in 4, and guess what? That number's not going down.
No,
you know what Appleton's is at right now? 36%.
Yeah, I hear you. Like,
and so
it's here, so we have to figure it out.
And guess what? The one thing about change, I'm big on this, is what people have to understand about change is there's 2 choices with change. You either partner with it or you succumb to it.
Yeah.
Because it will win in the end. So your choice is,
right.
If you fight against it, you'll never win. Change will happen regardless, and you'll be overcome by it. So your better bet is to figure out, how do we prepare and partner for the change ahead?
Yeah, and I agree. The thing that I'm concerned about is what happens to the people that are suffering while those people are just going along with it, trying to catch up. I mean, what's happening to those students now that are getting an inferior education? I'm talking about all the students, because the people that are shaping the whole environment of education are not they're not there yet. And it's complex. It's a system that's complex, but something's gotta.
Yeah, but I think that give is happening. I think that give is happening because the students are saying, we got to change, because this is my friend. These are my neighbors. These are my people. And the students, I think, in a lot of ways, are saying, hey, we I don't want to feel this way, as if my friend over here isn't getting the same, isn't invited to the same tables I am, or the same experiences. I want them to sit next to me because that's my friend. And I think there's that's happening. And I think some of these students are going to different households and breaking bread and having meals, which makes other people say, hey, yeah, got to do these things. And maybe I'm ignorant, but I think the pushback or the ability to ignore, and I won't even call it pushback because I don't even know if it's really pushback. I think it's trying to ignore more than pushback, but there's pushback too. They can't do it anymore because the change it's hit critical mass,
right?
Where you have to acknowledge it. 1 in 4.
Bruh.
Yep, you're right. And I think it is happening to an extent, but I also think that what's going on is that despite all that, there are certain things that people in the majority group don't see because they don't have to wrestle with it. And that's students, that's teachers, administrators, that's in the school system, that's at UWO too. So ways of talking about things to consider. Yeah, they're not against any progress per se. I mean, I think there probably still are some, but I think most people are for it. They just don't know what they don't know.
I agree with that. I would agree with that 100%.
And in the process, people are still getting slighted. People are still getting alienated. People are still falling through the cracks, even though 1 in 4. I mean, this should not be happening, but it still does, unfortunately. So we just have to keep encouraging more direct action and awareness and keep pushing it. Because I was thinking about teaching at UWO and just a real quick story. This is a while ago now. It's probably 10 years ago. No, it was it was newer than that. But the point is, because I was chair, so I got this invitation to be part of a talk about teaching millennials. And I said, well, yeah, we'll do it. Somebody asked us sociology. They're going to ask us to do something like on a panel. We'll do it. Then I hung up the phone. Like, okay, what do we do? Sociologists don't put all that much stock in these ideas that you can just generalize about generations very much. B, we didn't have anybody that studies that sort of thing. But I think we came up with something good. One of the main points, though, is that millennials and Gen Z then is even more diverse. Millennials were the most diverse generation of all time, the largest and more diverse, larger than the baby boomers, much more diverse. But here's the challenge with teaching them, and I think that's what we're dealing with still now, maybe to a greater extent because of social media making it appear a certain way.
Right.
Like, we know we're diverse. We are diverse because look. Let me show you let me show you TikTok or look at this, what I'm looking at. Look at my contacts on social media or whatever. So people believe they are living in a diverse environment, but actually on a day-to-day basis aren't, which makes it maybe even more challenging than when you went to school in some ways, because it's like, this guy can't tell me anything about diversity. I'm living it. I have all kinds of friends that are blah, blah, blah. But
but do you really?
Right. In reality, what does your day-to-day environment look like? And how are you talking? Because what I'm hearing is that we got lots, just as one example, at the middle school where my child went the last couple of years, all kinds of white kids saying the N-word all the time. According to her. Not necessarily in the old school derogatory way, but in ways that made her not comfortable and other people. Yeah, but we can do that, right? There's even a thing that apparently N-word pass. Like, right? I got an N-word pass on this one, right? I can say it in this. That's a thing. Just one maybe slightly trivial example, but I don't think it's too trivial, is that people think they're more they're at a more evolved position than they are.
Yeah.
Anyway,
you know what,
Bruh.
Look, I want to clarify for anyone that knows me: there is no N-word passes. There's just not.
No,
it's not a thing. I just want you to know, you get love, you get respect. I'll invite you over for meals. No passes.
No,
not in the Smith household.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I got to say that. But you know what? I felt good saying that.
Good. Well, if nothing else, we covered that topic. No inward pass. No inward pass. No, but I mean, I don't want to end it on a pessimistic note. I think there's a long way to go, and it's only natural. These things, because, getting back to that, sort of like the millennials and now it's Gen Z, whatever generalizations people want to make, like they're more diverse, more tolerant. The surveys say that's true. There's no doubt. But when my students were doing a film about the question, is Oshkosh still a sundown town? That's a whole, if you don't know what a sundown town is, look it up. I'll give a shout out right now to James Lowen, sociologist who just died. And he wrote a couple books that were really kind of earth shaking. One is Lies My Teacher Told Me. Look it up if you haven't read it. Every teacher should read this book. It would help a lot. And 2, Sundown Towns, A Hidden Dimension of American Racism, which mentions, it's about the country, but it mentions the Fox Valley numerous times throughout the book. So, James, why was I talking about James Lowen? Dang it, I lost my train of thought.
Well, you started off giving him a shout out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we were going down the path. I think you were...
Got it. Okay. Thank you. So I had my students, they were making a short film. I got to team teach this documentary filmmaking class with a radio TV film professor one time. It was so awesome. Troy Perkins, shout out to you, but he left and went to Texas, so shouldn't have done that, Troy. Anyway, the students interviewed a person who was a well-known politician in Oshkosh at the time, okay? He's on camera, and he's saying what a lot of people, I think, would say, which is, oh, there's a lot had grown up here, a middle-aged guy. A lot less direct racism and things like that. Sundown town. Oh, I haven't heard that term for a while. And I was thinking, I'm guessing you've never heard that term because this is not something that's widely discussed. Hence, this book that was like half a foot thick about documenting this and so forth. But anyway, he says something that, again, I think a lot of people think, which is, oh, we're doing so much better. We just need the last of the racists to die off, basically. It sounds kind of dumb, but lots of people say that. They say it in my classroom regularly. But in sociology, we say, can that possibly be true? Here's a problem. How do people learn how to act in society? One of the fundamental things we do in sociology is a process called socialization, where the agents of socialization, primarily the people that raise you, but teachers, the media, your peers, they teach you how to act.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. So there's less blatant racism. That is good. But what subtle things are people still perpetuating through stereotypes or things that they don't talk about or things that they misunderstand because of their own lack of interaction with people that are different, for example, that are getting directly taught to those kids, whether they're millennials or Gen Z? That's a problem. That means it's just going to take a lot longer than a lot of people would want to hope for these things to get rooted out and will they ever go away? I doubt it, but it's going to take a lot longer than a lot of people think. Ta-Nehisi Coates, when he came and spoke at Lawrence a couple years ago, if you haven't heard of him, you should read his book, Between the World and Me. It was a letter to his teenage son about how to survive as a black man in America. Best talk I ever saw at Lawrence. And one of the things he said, he's not a very optimistic person, very blunt. And people were saying, well, we're making progress and things like that. He's like, no, it took 400 years to get to this point. It's probably going to take about 400 years for it to get to a point where we're truly looking at something different, among other interesting things that he said. But we're never going to get there if we don't talk about these things honestly and try to deal with them head on. That's kind of my big point with it. Like, let's not pretend that, yes, I think it's great that 1 in 4 young people in Oshkosh are students of color. I think it's wonderful. But that doesn't mean that just because we have a critical mass that our problems are solved. We got to deal with them directly. Well, I'm not saying that's what you're saying either.
Yeah. No, the problem isn't solved. What I think what critical mass does, and I really do believe that the only way to solve the problem, the reason that the problem can't just die off, is because personally, my opinion is siloing. So it's really easy if we don't live together and everyone lives in neighborhoods that are all segregated out, and you don't have any diversity in your life, and you don't got any friends, or you don't break bread with it. And I don't mean that person you might work with.
Right.
One or two you say hello to every day or nothing like that. I don't mean any of those things. I mean somebody you truly know and talk to, kick it with, and break bread. My last one is always about, have you sat down and shared a meal together?
Right.
Where you've just, because I do think eating is the great equalizer. Good food is good food, and that's where, right, and that's where really you kind of figure out, oh yeah, we're kind of all the same, you know.
Can I say something?
Yeah. What are you asking for?
I just want to say 100%. You should hit the clap button for yourself right there. Listen, some live clapping right here.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
And that's sociology in action. I mean, sure, all these things can change in the culture, but if we're living separated in a separated fashion,
yeah,
you're not going to get to that point of belonging. You're not going to see yourself as part of the same group, like the we.
Right.
Your we is going to be really small. Well, we think this, or we're concerned about that. You start having meals with other people and actually living an integrated life. You're gonna get to that bigger we. And then more people feel like they belong. Yeah.
Well, I think when you do that, you find out real quick. Like, we'll go back to the fact that there's a lot of commonality there, and we're more the same than not.
Yep.
By far, we all got to pay these bills. I don't know nobody who likes taxes. Everybody likes a good food. Everybody wants a car that runs, a safe place for your family to be raised. I find that the basics, the fundamental basics of life here and in American society, I don't care who you are. I don't know many people that want something different.
Mm-hmm.
Like the very fundamental foundation of what I would call American society, no matter what culture you are, even if you're foreign and you're trying to acclimate into American culture, I still think the basics are the basics.
Yeah. And I don't feel bad promoting it again because it's mainly profiling this Afghan guy that I was talking about, but look at the things that he focused on there. Getting a roof over his head that was stable and being safe, be able to provide for his family. And that's human beings. Not complicated. People, it's not complicated. It's just
not complicated. All right. Anything else you want to say about the topic?
No, that was, I think just like you thought, it branched off into all kinds of stuff that we could talk about for hours, I think. So
yeah,
we might lose a few listeners if it went on longer though. So
nah, but I think, hey, look, I'm already thinking this might be a two-parter. This might have
That's
to be a two-parter.
That's the problem when you invite me to talk about stuff. I got a lot of hot air. I will talk and talk.
Hey, look,
for better or worse.
I don't know what else you're supposed to do on a podcast, so that makes you a good guest.
All right, I'll take it. Take it.
All right, it's that time. I just want to make sure, hey, Kosh listeners, thank you so much. But it's, we've covered some topics, we've touched sensitive things. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, if there's anything you want to know about, if there's any of the great books or opportunities to learn that Paul had mentioned that you're interested in, please do not hesitate to contact us at askthekosh@gmail.com. Once again, that is askthekosh at gmail.com. I want to hear from you. If you got anything you want to say to Paul, I will be happy to share with him. And if you want to know about, I will try to gather as many of the books that he mentioned and see if we can put some links inside of the podcast details.
Sounds
All
good.
right. All right. You know what time it is? It is shout out time. This is my favorite. This is my favorite thing about the podcast. You know what? Because shout outs make people happy. All right, Paul, who you shouting out?
I got a few. Can I give you a few?
Yeah, you can go. You can go for as long as you need to.
All right, I'm gonna start with Timber and the Kosh podcast. I think people, share with your friends. This is good. This is somebody doing something they thought would be a good thing to do and enjoyable on their own. Is a grassroots success story, and I like it a lot. And I hope people will do appreciate it and will share it. So that's shout out number one. Shout out number two, UWO's Sesquicentennial, which I mentioned earlier. I'm going to go sample one of those Sesquicentennial ales later. Timber won't because he doesn't like beer, but
wait a minute. I could be talked into it. You can twist my arm.
all right, well,
I mean,
I'll meet you there. It looks like it's not raining, but in any case, UWO. I think it's a pretty darn good place. It brought me here. My life's been better for it. It brought Timber to Oshkosh, I think.
Yes, this is true.
And we had the pleasure of crossing paths while both working for UWO. But I think it's moving in the right direction. Like a lot of the things we're talking about, I think UWO is moving in the right direction too. There's been some bumps in the road since I've been here and in recent years for sure. But what would this place be without that university? And it's touched a lot of lives and made this a richer environment, that's for sure. So being here right in the same spot in the heart of town since 1871, I sure hope that town gown divide that's kind of very interesting, in some ways kind of bizarre, but in other ways very understandable because of the kind of working class manufacturing history of the place. I hope that's going away, though. I hope it's starting to dissolve because that's another one of those divisions that doesn't help things.
I think, just real quick, I think the thing that helps it is that from being here and being part of the fabric of the Kosh, a lot of people's children go to UWO, and I think that changes dynamic.
No doubt. And one thing that's so interesting about that, too, is with the 2010 census anyway, Oshkosh was the 10th most homegrown city in the whole country. I don't know if that's changed in the intervening 10 years because I don't think that information has been analyzed yet. But what a luxury to be in a place where you want to stay, and you can go to a pretty darn good university and get a decent job and stay here if you want to. That's amazing. Not a lot of people would love to be in that situation and not have to have their kids, like you're saying. They appreciate their kids sticking around. No doubt they do. And they might want them to go see more of the world, yeah, but who doesn't want their kids close by? And where I'm from, there happened to be a small college in my town. That's why I grew up there, and my parents taught there. But the brain drain is real, and this is a place that can do something about that, in part because it's got a great university right here. So that's the first one. Oshkosh Food Co-op. I was member number 3. I was the third person to plunk down the one-time $180 fee.
Nice.
To become a member owner. And now we've got 1,800 members 10 years later, and the store is open.
Count me in. I'm one.
Yes. Awesome. And, it's a nice store. If you're a Kosh listener who doesn't know about the co-op, you need to know that anybody can go there. There are benefits to joining. There are some member-only things that happen from time to time, discounts and activities and things like that. But really, it's a place for everyone. It's just that we own it together, which is awesome. The last one that came to mind is 314 Pizza because today is their year anniversary. And this has been a really good new development right in our neighborhood here. So Travis and 314 Pizza, shout out to you. I've been really impressed to see what you've made out of that space and that you've been able to start in a pandemic and be successful. And I really enjoy being able to walk to a good pizza joint and have a beer and sit outside or whatever the case might be, and right in our East Side neighborhood. So those are my shout outs, Timber.
I'm with you. Travis, I was supposed to actually have Travis as a guest, and one time I canceled, the next time he canceled. So Travis, the invite's still there. Would love to have you on. We appreciate you. That pizza is amazing.
Yeah,
like it's quality. Yeah, and I hear there's going to be all sorts of good stuff down the block today. So I hear there's some wings, some pulled pork, and I'm about that life. I'm going to go break bread with my neighbors here on the block of Otta Ave and Bowen Street. We're going to go make it happen today. All right. My shout out goes to the vaccine clinics. Thank you for the work that you are doing. Let's keep moving forward. And my big thing is this. I just want to make sure that we don't make moves backwards. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It ain't like I like shots. I'm not into it per se. Right. But what I do want is we're heading in a direction forward, and I don't want things to allow us to make steps backwards. And that's where I'm coming from. So all those that have done it, those that I've got to participate with, the people, the organizers that I know, thank you for all the hard work that you've been putting out there.
I second that.
All right. It is the time. We are at wrap up. One more thing to do, Paul, and that is parting words of wisdom. What do you got for us?
Well, I guess I would just reiterate something that was kind of a theme. And that is just, think about people who maybe don't feel like they belong around you for whatever reason. And how you might change that, how you can play a role in changing that. If we all started thinking that way a little bit more, I think a lot of good things could start to happen.
I couldn't agree with you more. Thank you for being a guest, Paul.
Thank you. It was really fun, Timber. Keep up the good work.
I appreciate that. To the Kosh listeners, the Kosh.
Sweet.